How you doing? Let's see. So I'm going to try not to put any of you to sleep this morning. First of all, I'd like to say that it's a great thrill to be able to step on this stage after Jimmy. He's one of the, I think, heroes of the internet. There's a lot of people who, when the internet came along, built things that were pretty similar to what existed in the real world. Most of the first 10 years of the internet was building stuff that was pretty similar to what existed in the real world. And there were a few people who came along and built things that you could only do on the internet. And Jimmy built, one of the great web services of all time, Wikipedia. I use it every single day. And so, it's a great honor for me to be able to come up on the stage after him. There's people who are makers, and there's people who are investors. I'm in the latter category, and I really look up to the makers in this world. Hopefully a lot of you in the audience are makers. I want to talk about something that's pretty similar to where Jimmy ended, which is native internet marketing models. And Jimmy talked about how they wanted to, at Wikia, create advertising that was consistent with what people were doing in the community and not just putting up banners on pages. And that's where I want to start this presentation, and then I want to walk you through where I think all this is taking us. And I'm going to try to figure out how to use this clicker. So the title of this talk is The Fragmentation of Online Marketing. This is the first time I've given it, so I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm going to run through it as quickly as I can, and hopefully there'll be some time for questions at the end. When we invest in web services, the thing that we always encourage the teams to do is to build native monetization systems. It's exactly what Jimmy was talking about. We believe that each and every web service we invest in should have a monetization system that is unique and native to the experience that the users are doing in the web service. This is not putting banner ads up on the right side, the red-white thing that I guess you all were talking about this morning. This is the opposite of that. So some examples of native monetization systems. Paid search. You do a search. On the left-hand side are the organic results. On the right-hand side are the paid results. Totally appropriate and, in fact, value-enhancing for the people doing that search. Promoted accounts on Twitter. You might like this person. You're interested in sports. You can see that Twitter's promoting the Jets, Darrelle Revis, Crowmart, who had a bad game yesterday. And then they're also promoting, this is a paid promotion to MLB Fan Cave account. It's very native to be doing that when I'm looking at accounts to follow on Twitter. And in Foursquare, specials. I'm looking for a place to go to have dinner. Here are some specials right there in the moment that I'm looking for something to do. So these are value-enhancing monetization opportunities. They're native. They're what you would expect in the service exactly at the time you would expect it. And this is what we encourage all of our companies to look for when they think about how to make money. So let's just go back a little bit in time, back to the late 90s. At one time, the only monetization system that people could think of on the web was slapping up banners on their pages. And you would see things like this. A leaderboard for Dove, or a rectangle for Netflix. Not so long ago, maybe 5 years ago, Yahoo was 30–40% of all display advertising sold on the internet, and they were basically selling this experience on their pages. But that's changing, and it's changing pretty rapidly. Google came along, and as I said before, created paid search, and so anybody who wanted to buy paid search had to learn how to do this. Completely different experience. Google basically said, I know you want to buy banners, but we're not going to sell you that. We're going to make you come into this interface and figure out things like CTR and CPC and cost per conversion and cost per click and conversion rate, and we did. And now search, paid search represents, I don't know, 20, 30, 40% of all online advertising. It's massive. So then video came along. And of course, people created video advertising that ran on the internet, pre-rolls, in-stream. This is a big business now. And then social. We've got the Facebook ad with the like button at the bottom. And people, advertisers, track the success of this by how many likes they get, not how many clicks they get. And here's a promoted tweet on Twitter. This is a tweet that Kiva wrote and posted on their account, and then decided they wanted to promote it throughout the entire system. So when you go to your Twitter timeline and you see this, it's a tweet, just like any other tweet. It's not a banner ad, can't run anywhere else on the web, can only run on Twitter. Then came audio. Audio advertising is a growing category. 30-second spots, 15-second spots. I suspect we'll see many other kinds of formats over time. Then local. Everybody's familiar with Groupon. It's a brand new advertising format. Didn't exist 4 or 5 years ago. It's huge now. Mobile. These are iAds for Campbell Soup. So now, if you want to be an online marketer, you need to operate like you're in the NASA control room. You need to have 20 different systems. You need to be buying across all these systems. You need to be tracking through lots of different kinds of analytics. It's incredibly complex. The world is fragmenting. You can't just go to Yahoo and say, I'm going to buy Yahoo and I'm going to buy a couple of banner ad networks and I'm done. That doesn't work anymore. If you're doing that, stop doing it. But there's light at the end of the tunnel, because this is a good thing. You get more performance out of advertising that's native in the medium that you're advertising in. Promoted tweets work better in Twitter than banner ads. Facebook ads work better in Facebook than banner ads. So you tailor your advertising to work through and in each of these systems, and your campaigns perform better. And you can measure new things, different things, and you can create different kinds of behaviors. And there are many studies out there that demonstrate how these native systems perform way, way better than the early days of the internet advertising. You also get more reach because the internet is fragmenting, and people are on thousands, if not tens of thousands of websites across the world at scale, and they're not all just on Yahoo and Google anymore. So you need to be where your audiences are. You can't get enough reach if you just buy display banner advertising. So here's some examples of what I mean. Streaming audio is an emerging category. Didn't really exist 5 years ago. I mean, radio has existed for 50 years. Radio is a $20 billion over-the-air business, but streaming audio on the internet didn't exist 5 years ago. Here's some stats on streaming audio. This year, 80 million people in the United States will listen to internet radio. Next year, it'll be more than 100 million. It's approaching 50% of all internet users. It's a lot of people. And it's still a very nascent advertising format. What's interesting about internet radio is that people aren't just listening to Pandora. This is research that our portfolio company TargetSpot paid a third-party research organization to do. 73% of internet radio listeners change stations multiple times a day, and 50% of their time listening, they're actually looking for other things to listen to. And this is just a microcosm of what goes on the internet. People are constantly looking for new things on the internet. They just don't go to the same places all the time. They just don't get satisfied by staying at the same places all the time. But this is my favorite chart. So TargetSpot, in addition to doing research on audience, also did research on ad performance. And what they found out was that if you do an internet radio campaign and a traditional internet campaign, you get 2 times the increase in response. And I would venture to bet that if you do the same campaign across 5 or 6 of these different channels that I talked about before, you would see an even larger response. Hitting people natively in each experience with your marketing message at the appropriate time will build familiarity and lead to much higher performance. Here's another example, venue-based advertising. It's a brand new format, really doesn't even exist right now. Our portfolio company, by the way, TargetSpot is a portfolio company of ours, full disclosure. So is Foursquare. Foursquare now has 1 billion check-ins. That's 1 billion times that somebody has said, I am here right now. And there are over 500,000 merchants on the Foursquare platform, poised to do venue-based advertising. What is venue-based advertising? This is an example of it. American Express did a deal with Foursquare where you could sync your American Express card to your Foursquare account. And then when you go in to any place that's running a special, you just get special credited to your American Express card. So if someone's giving you $5 off a sandwich at your favorite store, boom, you get a $5 credit on your American Express card. Cardholders that synced their accounts spend 20% more than cardholders without access to the Amex specials. So this venue-based advertising, hitting somebody in the moment they're in the venue with the offer, is extremely powerful. And I don't think we've even begun to see how powerful this new medium is. So my message, first and foremost, to all online marketers out there is do not keep your head in the sand. The online marketing world is changing. It's changing very fast. What worked yesterday is not going to work tomorrow. You have to always be trying new mediums, measuring them, pushing the envelope, working harder, getting smarter. You have to embrace these new mediums. You have to be there. You can't just say, hey, I don't have the resources to do it, I don't understand it. You've got to take the time and make the investment and see if it can work for you. If you need help, there's plenty of places to go. I have a friend who's involved with an agency called Media Kitchen. It's not an advertisement for Media Kitchen. I'm not invested in Media Kitchen, but there are lots of specialized agencies like Media Kitchen out there that are pioneering across all these new channels and all these new mediums. They have the expertise. If you don't, and you don't have the resources or the time to do it yourself, you can find agencies out there that can do it for you. And there are tools. This is a portfolio company of ours called Clickable. They have self-serve systems that let you buy paid search, hyperlocal, and social, all through a single interface. So if you want to do it yourself and you just need the tools, there are companies like Clickable out there that can do it for you. So my message here is the online marketing world is fragmenting. There's no single channel anymore. There's many channels. Today, maybe there's a dozen. Tomorrow, maybe 2 dozen. 10 years from now, maybe 100. And you have to accept that that's where the world is going. And just in the way that the internet is fragmenting across tens of thousands of web services, your marketing opportunities are fragmenting equally. And in order to reach the audiences you want to reach and get your message in front of them, you've got to go with them. So that's my prepared remarks, and I will take questions for as long as you've got time for me.
Thank you, Fred. That was great. So we'll kick it off with a few questions. Actually, the first one I had was, years ago I was on the buy side of the business, right? So the media agency business. And I remember taking a number of solutions like this maybe 4 or 5 years ago to a large CPG client. It was actually Campbell's. And I got done with my presentation, and Campbell's client looked at me and said, this is all really exciting. But the way that we think about things in our kind of mass market world is you can get 5 to 10 million Americans to do just about anything. So whether it's Foursquare or Twitter or whatever the service is of the year. So what would your response be to somebody who's used to reaching people at mass through vehicles like television, and they need to kind of stay on top of this and potentially invest in kind of new sites, new technologies like this?
Well, I think my message would be, if you don't adopt these new technologies, your competitors are going to, and people who get stuck in the mass marketing paradigm, I think are at some point going to wake up and realize there is no mass marketing paradigm anymore. There are a few things that are left, the Super Bowl, the Oscars, you know, the big events, the World Cup finals, whatever, that will aggregate hundreds of millions of people at the exact same time. But those are really few and far between, and I think that if you look out 10 years, I think the pattern is pretty clear that we're moving away from that model. And so people who are used to, you know, mass marketing are going to have to figure out how to adapt and find new things. And by the way, these services that I pointed to are not 5 million. I mean, you know, you look at something like streaming audio, there's going to be 100 million people listening to streaming audio this year. Foursquare has something like 14 or 15 million users. So, you know, there are, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred, maybe 300 web services out there that, according to ComScore, have more than 20 million users in the United States, and that means they probably have more than 50 million users worldwide. So, you know, we're seeing web services reach a scale of audience that TV has never been able to do. And so the notion that there's only 2 or 3 or 5 places that you can reach 50 million people, I think isn't true anymore.
Great. We have another question for Fred.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you ask questions throughout the day, if you could please stand and mention your name and company, that would be outstanding.
Hi, Nancy Lewinter. Everything seems to be volumetrics that's mentioned here. In traditional media, which I remember, it was always the rub-off effect, the validation you got from the environment that you were in. Both you and the previous speaker really didn't talk about that validation that you get. And do you get a particular validation by being on any of these platforms other than pure numbers?
Well, I think that you, obviously, one of the things that internet advertising has done since its beginning is lead with the numbers and say, look, you can actually track and measure how many people clicked on the ad, how many people liked the Facebook ad. But I think that you also see a ton of the more subjective stuff like brand lift and people developing more affinity to the brand. You can see your net promoter score go up. And the tools to measure these more important in some sense, but harder to measure impacts have lagged the easy stuff. And I think we're just beginning to see companies out there that are able to help you measure those things. A lot of the companies that are working in social media marketing and analytics are doing a lot of good work there.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Do we have another question?
We have someone right here.
Hi, Karen Levine with Triple Play Consulting. My question is about the Amex Sync program. I learned about it at the US Open because they had signage there. They're doing it with Foursquare and with Facebook. And I'm just curious to learn more about it and how successful it's been, because it was almost a little intimidating when I went to sign up for it, and I'm a relatively early adopter as far as, you know, Foursquare location-based. But once you sign up, there's a lot of great offers. So I'm just curious what the adoption and the success has been.
The adoption has been good enough that you know, American Express is going to try to roll this out, I think, to more services. In my opinion, what American Express needs to do is they need to copy what Twitter and Facebook have done with Facebook Connect or the sign-in with Twitter, where American Express could give you a one-button click to do that kind of thing. You know, if you're on you know, turntable.fm, which is a music service we're an investor in, and you hit the Facebook button, boom, you're right in. You don't do anything. You don't type in your Facebook account or anything like that. So brands and marketers and merchants and payment systems and those kinds of things, they need to replicate that kind of functionality and make it really easy for users to, boom, hit one button and connect all that stuff. You're right, today it's, you got to sign in, you got to get a couple of information, you got to go over here, and those kinds of experiences you'll get a couple 100,000, maybe if you're lucky 1 million people to do. But if you could do something as easy as Facebook Connect, you could get 50, 100 million people to do that.
Great. Do we have any other questions? Oh.
Good morning. Thanks.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Good.
My name is Brandon Gerson. I'm with the Mackinger Agency. We specialize in social listening. And I just wanted to know your opinion on how some of these new technologies are playing with more of the B2B marketing aspect, rather where I see a lot of value with Facebook and Foursquare and things like that on B2C, but how do you see other businesses kind of engaging in this type of behavior?
I think that it's always harder for the enterprise to engage like a consumer does, because a big company, there's multiple decision makers, there's lawyers and financial people and everything, and so getting a big company to behave the way a consumer might behave with respect to any of these social systems is a much harder thing to do. But I do think that we're seeing a lot of progress there. We're starting to see fairly large companies engage deeply in these systems, and I think when they do, they see a lot of benefit. You know, it requires having an organization to do it, right? They need to have a social media team or whatever that actually gets out and gets their message out in, you know, in a consistent way. But I think they have no choice but to do that.
Great. Okay, we've got time for one more question.
Yes, hi. My name is Suleika Cuevas. I'm with National Hispanic Corporate Council. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. This is probably $1 million question, but I'm sure most of us are thinking it. What's the best way, I guess a very short roadmap as to what organizations, corporations can do in this world of complex social media to tap into, to find those audiences that best pertain to their organization?
I think the best thing you could do is hire some really smart kids right out of college who grew up using these services and think this way. You know, it's just amazing. We do that. So we have some young people in our organization, and you know, the insights that they have, and even the way that they work, and the way that they do research and the way they find people is fundamentally different than the way that I do. So I think getting young people into your marketing organizations and your customer service organizations and any part of your company that touches your customers, and giving them some freedom to be creative within the boundaries of what, you know, your organization can do, I think is the best thing you can do.
Great. Thank you, Fred. Thanks for joining us today.